Thank you for coming to another presentation on Srila Visvanatha Cakravarti Ṭhakura's Sri Madhurya Kadambini, the Monsoon Clouds of Sweetness. We are in this second shower of nectar, and today we're going to be discussing Kleśaghnī and Śubhadā, the destruction of distress and the bestowing of auspiciousness. These characteristics come in the stage of sadhana bhakti. As we know from our last discussion, bhakti comes into the life of a devotee through the mercy of a sadhu, a devotee of Krishna. From that association, a seed is planted, and that seed is the intent to turn one's consciousness to the Supreme Lord from the Lord's external material energy. As that intent has been likened to a small creeper, the first two characteristics of sadhana bhakti have been likened to the initial leaves of that creeper, one representing Kleśaghnī and the other representing Śubhadā. Sri Visvanatha writes in his Madhurya Kadambini, Kleshas are of 5 types: avidya, asmita, rag, dvesha, and abhinivesha. Karmic reactions are of 4 types: parabdha, aparabdha, ruda, and bija. These are all included in klesha. Auspiciousness, subha, refers to divine qualities such as disinterest in material affairs, interest in the Lord, serving the Lord favorably, mercy, forgiveness, truthfulness, straightforwardness, steadiness, gravity, respectfulness, humility, all good fortune, and so on. The Bhagavat says, all the good qualities of the demigods reside within the devotees. In Visvanatha's presentation of the Kleshas, he refers to Patanjali's Yoga Sutra 2.6, avidya, smita, raga, dvesa, binivesha, pancha klesha. So the 5 types of klesha. The first one being avidya or ignorance, and out of that ignorance the other 4 come: asmita, false ego; rag, attachment; dvesa, hatred; and abhinivesha, fear of death. About ignorance. Ignorance is the root of all the other kleshas. It is not ignorance in an intellectual capacity, but in the sense that we are oblivious of our true nature, that we have forgotten or masked our spiritual essence, mistaking the transient for the eternal, the impure for the pure, distress for pleasure, and the non-self for the self. The primary symptom of ignorance is identifying with the lifeless body and its byproducts. Asmita, false ego. False ego is a false sense of the self, the identification with I, me, and mine. It is the feeling that we are separate from each other, from nature, and from the interconnectedness that surely underpins consciousness. The Sankhya philosophers similarly call the identification of the individual soul with material energy asmita. Raga is wanting, craving, coveting, and in some cases addiction. It is the craving for material possessions, the drive for power and ambitions, and the clinging to feelings, people, and situations that are the obstacle we need to overcome on the road to spiritual freedom. Dvesha is the aversion to distress and its causes, the opposite of rag. This is when we push away from people, places, and things. Abhinivesha is the tenacious will to live and a fear of death. And in a wider context, we could say it is fear of loss or change. According to Rupa Goswami, Klesha includes the 4 types of karmic development: aparabdha phalam papam, kutam bijam phalonmukam, karmendaiva, paliyate, Vishnu bhaktir atatmanam. In the Padma Purana it is said, for those engaged in bhakti to Vishnu, step by step, the aparabdha, kuta, bija, and parabdha karmas are destroyed. Sri Jiva Goswami comments as follows on Sri Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu verse. This additional quotation from the Padma Purana makes clear the fact that bhakti destroys parabdha karma. The word papam is the substantive which is modified by words aparabdha phalam, kutam, bijam, and phalonmukam. This verse particularizes sinful reaction. Phalonmukam, approaching fruition, means parabdha karma, literally commenced karma. The sinful reaction presently being experienced in this life as happiness and suffering. The 4 types of karma: aparabdha, ruda or kuta, bija, and parabdha. Parabdha, these are the results of past sinful activities that one is in the process of suffering. For instance, the sins that have led to one's specific body and other apparently accidental events in this life. It's important to know that in looking to parabdha karma, from the spiritual point of view, both the reactions to piety and impiety, or enjoyment and suffering, fall within the realm of parabdha, or material suffering. Aparabdha, these are accumulated unlimited fruitive reactions that have not yet yielded results. They are in an inactive state. Ruda, these are subtle sins. Later they will attain seed form and yield fruit. They can also be considered the aggregate of aparabdha sinful reaction. And bija, the seed form of sin, i.e. the sinful propensity. These sins exist in the form of subconscious desires which eventually mature into parabdha. The basic idea here is that there is a unlimited storehouse of aparabdha, or sinful activity, and from there, that sinful activity aggregates and become kuta, and from there a desire can well up in the consciousness, and that desire eventually leads to activity which is experienced in our life as prarabdha or prarabdha karma. The jiva's ignorance results in the acceptance of various bodies to fulfill subconscious material desires. Material desires are accepted as demigods, as human beings, and as animals. The demigods and the animals' forms of life are meant for experience the positive and negative effects of pious and impious karmas. The human life is the perfect field for engaging in karmas, both pious and impious. New desire seeds are only created and accumulated in the human form of life. The evidence of this is that human beings are more expert in desiring than they are in enjoying. Of course, this doesn't mean that there is not enjoyment and suffering in the human form of life. It just means of the three forms of life, those on the upper planetary systems as demigods, or in the animal kingdom, the human form of life is where one accumulates karmic reaction, both pious and impious, for future enjoyment or suffering. Sadhana bhakti has the power to destroy ignorance. From the Bhagavatam, we have the following verse: "Worship Vasudeva, who alone is worthy of refuge." Saintly persons undo the knots of bondage in the reactions to their own actions by devoting themselves to his lotus feet and their petal-like toes. On the other hand, those foolish sannyasis who are attached to the formless Brahman and devoid of any such inclination are caught up in the currents of karma and do not achieve such liberation. O Lord, even a poor person born in an outcast family of dog-eaters immediately becomes qualified to perform Vedic sacrifices simply by hearing, chanting, praying, paying obeisances, or remembering you. Then what can we say of the honors deserved by the person who has seen you face to face? Bhakti surpasses jnana in destruction of prarabdha karma. The prarabdha, more mature sins of even a low-born bhakta are destroyed, whereas a jivan mukta situated in intellectual spiritual realization of non-personal Brahman must wait until all their prarabdha is destroyed at death before they achieve full liberation. Considering prarabdha karma is easily destroyed by sadhana bhakti, there should be no doubt that the three other kinds of sin, aparabdha, kuta, and bija, are also. The main point being conveyed here is that bhakti is so powerful that the bhakta easily is freed of all sinful reaction simply by engaging in service to the Lord, whereas the experienced yogi, even though attaining the stage of Brahman realization and becoming a jivan mukta, or one completely free of all material desire, must still wait until the end of his material body before all of his prarabdha karma runs out. Going on to a couple verses highlighting the auspiciousness of the beginning stage of sadhana bhakti, Śubhadā, all good fortune falling upon the devotee. Just as a devotee's miseries and sins are destroyed by sadhana bhakti, all good qualities manifest in their life. Yashyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunais tantra sama sate sura. All the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Sanatana Goswami, devotees are always merciful, humble, truthful, equal to all, faultless, magnanimous, mild, and clean. They are without material possessions, and they perform welfare work for everyone. They are peaceful, surrendered to Krishna, and desireless. They are indifferent to material acquisitions and are fixed in devotional service. They completely control the 6 bad qualities, lust, anger, greed, and so forth. They eat only as much as required, and they are not inebriated. They are respectful, grave, compassionate, and without false prestige. They are friendly, poetic, expert, and silent. We can see from this statement by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that all good qualities naturally arise in the character of Krishna's devotees as they advance in sadhana bhakti to bhava and to prema. The manifestation of these good qualities is not something that has to be separately strived for by the devotee, but they come naturally as a byproduct of their loving devotion for Krishna and the maturing of that devotion into pure love for the Lord. Again, I thank you for viewing another presentation on Sri Visvanatha Cakravarti Ṭhakura's Sri Madhurya Kadambini. I hope that this unpacking of this monsoon cloud of sweetness nourishes your spiritual growth and understanding. Hare Krishna.